Been a very interesting discussion. Let's see here. Council President Otis, Vice President Keegan, and Council members. I'm here in the surprising capacity of opposing a bill which would eliminate DRRAs in Frederick County. Let me clarify that thought. I don't oppose your newfound goal to eliminate new DRRAs, whomever goal it was, as it turns out. Rather, I think the method that you've chosen is going to create some problems, and I think you've already heard a bit about that. Beyond that, I think it's very unfortunate that there couldn't be an agreement on reasonable limitations on DRRAs. Instead of finding some middle ground, you adopted Councilman Schmelik's amendment, which basically said that rather than impose a few limitations on DRRAs, you'll simply do away with them entirely. In fact, Councilman Schmelik, as we've discussed, did exactly as the Land Use Council suggested last October. In so doing, I think this action merely perpetuates the same yo-yoing on the development question that he and his colleagues so often complain about. Moving on, hopefully you've all seen my letter from Sunday. I've passed out copies with my testimony. In that letter, I detail what I believe are significant concerns about what may occur when you completely eliminate the text of Chapter 125, as this bill does. In the grandfathering clause, your bill states that each DRRA would be governed by its own terms. However, in my letter, I showed you that just looking at only 4 of the 14 DRRAs shows that those terms are quite varied and inconsistent with state law. Further, those contracts each reference back to applicable county laws, and I'm sure they assume the continued existence of Chapter 125. By deleting Chapter 125, you've created a potential mess. In my letter, I focused on the amendment process because I think this is a key issue for existing DRRAs. We need look no further than Bill 17-21. There, you are discussing changing the permitted uses in an MXD governed by a DRRA, an action that will clearly dictate an amendment to the DRRA. And here you're proposing a bill that would delete the very language needed to guide how that amendment is conducted. I think this is bad policy and bad government. Some may argue that state law will prevail and guide how an amendment will occur. That sounds reasonable, but I'm not sure it's correct. After all, it was determined that the county needed to implement the state law locally in order to create a DRRA, and we've heard discussion about that. I think that same logic would suggest that the county needs the local law for amending and administering the DRRA as well. So what's missing in all of this? The Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has a state-mandated role to determine whether a DRRA amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan. 3 out of the 4 DRRAs I examined were silent on this requirement, including the Jefferson Tech Park DRRA. If you rely solely on the contract, then you will be in violation of state law on this point. In closing, I would certainly support an effort to do away with future DRRAs, but you need to do it carefully. Rather than deleting all of Chapter 125, you should instead retain the portions of the code pertaining to the administration of current DRRAs. You need to look at this carefully and soberly and not from the perspective of upcoming campaign messages, and you should try really hard not to violate state law in the process. Thank you.